What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of SSPN. I really shouldn't be this down, kind of coming in, Ethan. You maybe could hear it a little bit. I tried to be enthusiastic. I still
Mhm.
don't think I was as enthusiastic as I possibly could be there. And that's just because of how the fourth quarter went in this one. This was one of our more complete games of the season. And really, even the fourth quarter wasn't too terrible. It was kind of just the same story as the third quarter in the sense that we got a little bit of a lead, almost a 10-point lead. I know it was 98, 91 was kind of the last lead that I remembered just in my brain there. And then we just weren't able to finish the quarter, unfortunately. Ethan, give me your thoughts on this one.
Man, it's tough because it's the same formula for a lot of our other losses where we jump out to a great start. Looks like we're gonna be in charge of the game from start to finish. Our offense looks fluid. Guys are making the correct decisions. Defensively, we're swarming the ball, fighting for extra possessions, snagging rebounds. And then, our age just shows. We cannot play 48 minutes, and the Miami Heat, that's their thing, is we're going to play 48 minutes start to finish. And defensively, they really upped the ante in that second half. They were swarming, they were pushing our guys off the block, making us uncomfortable, especially with the zone. And when you lose the turnover battle 17-4, as well as the foul battle 21-12, it's tough to win those kind of games.
Yeah, and the other that there's two other key things there. One was kind of that you already touched on. I mean, this was a team. I know they're a little bit different this year, but this was a team that was in the finals last year,
Yep.
versus us. And then the other key thing here tonight, I don't want to call it a bad game, but of the season so far, this was Devin's worst shooting night. Um, and so, like I said, not overall bad, but here's another theme that continues to ring true throughout the season, Ethan. And I know a lot of people are probably frustrated with Keldon's performance, missing some shots in the fourth quarter, but he was doing a lot in the third, in those first three
Hmm.
quarters where we wouldn't have even been in that position without him. But he had 20, Victor had 18, but old Dev had 14. And like we've said, in the wins we've had this year, all those guys have had at least 18 plus. So we weren't able to get to that tonight. There were a lot of good things that I saw throughout the game. Obviously, in the fourth quarter, the Heat picked up their defensive pressure. They just really took over the game. It's like you talked about. They're a team that was in the finals last year. It's also just a part of their culture, and they were able to impose their will, which I know we're trying to get better and we don't want to make too many more excuses. But at the same time, it's like that this team was in the finals last year. Like, I don't, like as much as it is a little bit of a different team, they're just way more experienced than us. They showed the stat on Valley Sports. Like, I mean, if you look at playoff games, it's like times like I don't know what number. And then I think just the amount of games in general, they have like double, in comparison to our roster. But I'll pull up the box score here a little bit, Ethan, so we can kind of go individual by individual, I guess, if you will.
Sure.
Um, we can start off with Victor Wembanyama. I know if you look at the stat sheet, maybe not the most efficient game, but I really liked what I saw from him on the boards. 7 assists tonight, 7 turnovers, which it didn't really seem like that when I watched the game. But of course, everybody wants to talk about Wemby. So what did you kind of think of his game tonight?
Yeah, it was a rough start. I felt like Wemby's a conundrum in that it's really like a complete 180 in the first half to the second half for most of these games for him. It's like he has to feel out his opponent to get comfortable. So I'm looking forward to when he actually plays a team, the second night. I think that's when he played Phoenix back to back. He had 38 the second night, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
So
yes.
it's like he needs to kind of get a feel for a team before he can truly feel comfortable and start scoring. And in the second half, I felt like we saw a little bit better of a shooting performance from him. Still, like you said, 8 for 22, not the most efficient night, but 11 rebounds, 7 assists. He looked like a better playmaker tonight. The 7 turnovers is really. I know he gets lackadaisical every once in a while with his passes, especially with the one-handed passes, but it still felt like he was connecting more on those tonight, Jude, for me, especially in the low block. The biggest problem turnover-wise for him, in my eyes, is when he does try and do a little bit too much dribbling the ball. And when you're playing the Miami Heat against Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, even Jaime Jaquez, like they swarm and they peck at the ball a lot. So they were able to force a lot of turnovers just from double teaming and triple teaming and trapping him in uncomfortable situations.
Yeah, yeah, and they did that to some other guys as well. And when you
Mhm,
talked about passing, there's 3 plays that stick into my mind. There were 2 passes to Zach, that just were a little bit out of reach, and
mhm.
it was kind of funny. I had the thought to myself while I was watching the game. I was like, "Hey, Wemby, I love the passes, but
Yeah,
Zach's not you." He
yeah,
can't get up that high. And then there was one where it was right on, it's just a little bit too fast. Malachi wasn't paying attention on a cut inside.
yep, I
I
saw
say
that.
wasn't paying attention. That's what it looked like. But sometimes I feel like some of these passes they just don't expect from Wemby. And that kind of ties into Devin's comments like earlier in the year when it's not just him being a 7'4" dude, it's just somebody with his talent level, or skill level at his size. It's just, you don't there's some things that I feel like they don't expect from him, that they're
Yeah,
still going to have to get used to. And another point that you mentioned there when you were talking about how you feel like Wemby has to get comfortable with teams, remember what Kenny Smith said in the first TNT game. I think that was the first game against the Suns. He
mhm,
said he really feels like we're going to see the real him once he like goes through the NBA rounds, like plays everybody. You know what
mhm.
I mean? And that's kind of why in the solo live, I talked about how I'm really interested to see what this team looks after the All-Star break. Excuse me, I'm tripping over my words. Looks like after the All-Star break. Obviously, that's very future sighted, but I felt like that tied into what you said.
Yeah, for sure. And defensively, he's still that guy. I just wanted to put that out there. Except for the one moment where Bam basically fullback shouldered him right in the chest and sent him into the front row underneath the basket. I was like, ooh, that looked like it may have concaved his sternum a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Hey, another bright spot tonight, though, Ethan, Malachi Branham, and that
Mm,
was really crucial in Trey's absence. There were definitely, obviously, Trey does some things that you're always going to miss if he's not on the floor. But 7 assists for Malachi. He played that combo guard role to a T. And I texted you in the first quarter after he missed the wide open three. I was like, he's got to be more consistent on threes. That's my only criticism from this year. And he didn't miss one for the rest of the game. It was like he heard me, Ethan.
yeah, 4 for 5 from three. That really opened up everything else. And then he looked way more. I don't know what the word is, poised, I guess. Like his passes were crisp, they were popping. A lot of times in the games previous to this, it looks like he's still feeling everybody out, still getting comfortable in that role. Not sure if he should score or pass, like indecisiveness. Tonight it was
Right.
the complete opposite.
Yeah, and that was really cool to see because he was kind of playing a different role than he'd played,
Hmm.
all season so far. But we also know that he had to play a lot of combo guard last year. He also
Hmm.
played a lot of combo guard at Ohio State. So it was cool for him to just kind of remind us of that skill set. And inevitably, Trey's probably going to have some other games where he's out this year. So that was
True.
also a good sign, just, moving forward for the rotations where you can just slide Doug in, move Malachi to point off the bench. And that made kind of it was a smooth transition with Trey out, but we did still miss him tonight for sure.
Agreed. Agreed.
Ethan, honestly, I know we're only 8 minutes into this thing, but a lot of the things and that I would say about this game, my reactions are very similar to kind of what we've seen throughout the rest of this season. So
Hmm.
I don't really have too much more, honestly, off the top of my head.
Yeah, I got two guys that I kind of want to highlight here. The first is Jeremy Sohan. I felt like he had another very good game, and he's kind of gone on like a 3 game stretch where his activity has been lifted, his motor is way higher, and he's attacking the basket offensively. He doesn't look nearly as lost coming off of pick and roll situations as the primary ball handler. He looks more confident making those passes, whether that be a dump off to Zach down low or kicking it out to the weak side corner. He just looks way more settled in. And I know he recently tweeted, or somebody tweeted that his comments about playing point guard were like, sometimes I'm like, F that, this crap sucks. And he responded with, I didn't say that. So I'm glad to know that he didn't say that. He's embracing the experiment. And tonight was definitely a positive for Jeremy Sohan.
Yeah, he actually did say sometimes I'm just like F it, but he
Hmm.
was just explaining that like, hey, like this is tough. Like he was just
Yeah.
admitting that sometimes it's frustrating, which makes sense considering you're playing point guard for the first time in the league.
Hmm.
Like, not somewhere else, not high school, not college. You're playing point guard for the first time in the NBA. Like of
Yeah.
course you would get frustrated, but somebody quote tweeted that and said like see, he doesn't even want to play point
Yeah,
guard.
they
And that's what he
spun
was
it.
saying. Yeah. And he was like, that's not what I'm saying whatsoever. I'm just admitting that it's frustrating sometimes.
Yeah, and then defensively, I know Jimmy. What did he end up finishing with? Jimmy Butler,
Let me scroll up here.
19 points on 5 for 14 shooting, so not extremely efficient, but he was definitely killing us in that fourth quarter with some clutch baskets. But that's what Jimmy Butler does. But for the first 3 quarters, at least, Jeremy's defense on Jimmy was very solid. He was denying him the ball. And really, a big reason why our run in that first quarter was 29-15. Jimmy just could not get comfortable with Jeremy on him.
That's why he shot 5 for 14. But another key in this game, Ethan, I tweeted this on the SSPN on YT account on Twitter. 30 free throws for the Miami Heat tonight, just 12 for us. That's another big key in this game as well. And I've kind of seen that at some other ones, but I wish I could sit here and be like, oh my God, but I just can't, because it's like they showed our average roster age and we're 23 years old.
Yeah.
Like, and I know it's different standards this year, but at the same time, I mean, we'll see how the season goes. But these last 2 games, I'm not that mad at. And if y'all go watch Pop's post-game presser from the last game, he basically summed it up. Like, even in the in-tournament game, he felt way better about that one than he did the other 2. Like, we're fighting. We're still in these games. When you consider Kyle Lowry was out for them, it was a pretty even matchup, I would say, with both of those guys out. Well, they did have Caleb Martin and Tyler Hero, so not even in that sense.
Yeah.
But in the sense that this was, like, I would say, with those injuries too, made it pretty even, because when you take those 2 guys out, then the Trey Jones, Kyle Lowry thing feels a little bit more equal. But yeah, I mean, I'm just glad that we fought, but we got to learn how to keep these leads, man, because we had a 10-point lead in the third, and then we didn't finish the quarter well. And then we did the same thing in the fourth quarter. And if you look up at the very top of this box score here, started out 29-15, didn't win another quarter for the rest of the game. But I will say, despite the third quarter, I mean, not being great, that was one of our better starts coming out of the second half than we've had. Like I said, you still got to finish the quarter, but considering how bad our starts in the second half have been this season, I was happy to see that.
For sure. Like, you're right. When you zoom out and look at this big picture, like, these past 2 games have really been solid. Like, we didn't deserve to win either of them, for sure, but, like, way better performances than the Clippers loss and the Raptors loss. And what was the third one that we got blown out? By
Pacers.
40? The Pacers loss.
Yeah.
Just worlds better on that end. The only thing I don't have an excuse for, Jude, or not even an excuse, just like a defensible, something or another. It's, you can't let Duncan Robinson go for 26 points, 8 for 16 shooting, 4 for 7 from 3. Like, that's not the guy. Yeah, we're just letting the wrong people go crazy and get hot. I don't know what the fix is, but this is the last guy you should let get wide open shots. And we gave him so many wide open shots.
Yeah, and he even caught Jeremy. For as much as I love Jeremy's defense tonight, he caught him twice on those pump fakes. And it's like, that's the last guy. Yeah. You got to be going for the pump fakes on. And speaking of pump fakes, that's been another theme with Wemby this year. If you want to have like one, I guess this is kind of something I was thinking about during the game. If there's one downside to having an 8-foot wingspan, it's if they fake you out and you jump, it's probably like automatically a foul.
Yeah. He just needs to get better with patience, and what's his name talked about that too. Sean, he was like, if he doesn't even need to jump, just stay grounded. Don't try and go for every single pump fake and block. If you stand there and contest, it's already like a better contest than 99% of other players that are jumping. So he'll figure it out. He'll get better at that.
Here we go. I picked the wrong comment there, Drummer Seb, but I appreciate you being in here. This was the one that I was trying to get to. This is the point. The rest of the team should be more calm. We rush too many times on offense. That is one thing that I also would say I have a criticism for of these guys. Whenever we force shots, and it's, I 3 times that stick out of my mind this game. There are some times I saw it from Keldon. There are some times I saw it from Jeremy, and there are some times I saw it from Malachi. I'm sure there are probably some other ones you could find too. But whenever we try to force those shots, we usually don't get as good ones. And as you saw in the first quarter, and I know that teams are going to make adjustments, but when you're moving the ball, you're having ball speed, you're making extra passes, we're going to get better shots, man. And, that just kind of comes with learning. And a lot of these guys, do have isolation skills. Maybe not as much like when I mentioned Jeremy and Keldon there. I mean, not to say that they don't completely have them, because we've definitely seen Keldon take people off the dribble, and Jeremy as well too. But especially when Jeremy gets into those post ups, I understand sometimes he makes them, but that's been a theme throughout this season. When he runs inside and gets
Mm.
into a post up and then just decides to take the shot, those usually aren't the best. One of those got blocked tonight. I can't. That was earlier in the game. But moreover, the theme there is when we force it, good
Mm.
things don't happen.
Yeah. And to make matters worse, when those situations do arise, other guys on the team get, what's the word I'm looking for? Nervous, I guess. And they ruin the spacing by either cutting into Jeremy's way or whoever's posted up, and then it becomes a complete jumbled mess where you have too many guys in the paint because they weren't. I mean, I know it's not the best play in the world, but at the same time, if he's gonna do it, or if anybody's gonna do it, you have to make sure he has his space.
Our man Nick Madison says, I miss Jay Rich, and I'm glad he brought him up because he also hit 2 clutch shots on us, man. It was giving me flashbacks to last year when he hit clutch shots for us in the Frostbank Center. I mean, that one shot over Devin was super tough. He hit a
Mm.
3 in front of Wemby. I was
Yep.
just like, bro, come on now. You can't be doing this to us, but he did. He did.
Mm. I miss him.
I do too. I do too. There's a lot of, there's obviously some things that I say some things. There's a lot of things that these guys can get better at, but I feel like the only way that that's going to happen with a young team like this is continuing to get reps and continuing to play. I know a lot of people are talking about tanking right now in the comments, and we'll see how this season goes, but here's the thing. I think we're definitely trying more this season. I think we're definitely going to be more competitive. And even if we do lose the games, then we just get a better draft pick. So I don't think it's necessarily tanking because we're not going for 1 through 3,
Mm.
but we're going to be in the lottery. I mean, even in the play-in, as we predicted before the season, is you're in the lottery. So if you don't win a game, which is what we were probably expecting, so we're going to be there anyway. And when you play the lottery in those odds, I mean, yes, it's not very much, but you could jump up to 9, you could jump up to, 12 or 13, who knows? But we're playing that game anyways, I guess what I'm trying to say there.
Yeah. Yeah. Patience is the key for the team, and it's the key for the fan base.
I agree. I agree. Let's see what Max Roach has to say here, or Rouch. Excuse me if I mispronounced that. I just want guys to do what they're good at when we shoot mid-range and get the ball on the move in the paint. Sohan be a post-up playmaker rather than a PG. Keldon just be a spark plug. I get what you're saying there, totally. I mean, obviously they're going to continue to play him at point guard, regardless of what anybody says. But I totally get what you're saying there. That we would like to see, like I said, those forced shots that we talked about. We don't need that. There are some times where we can try to emphasize looks that are to our guys' strengths that
Mm.
we didn't do down the stretch in this game. But what is that again, Ethan? That's a symptom of a young team. So
Mhm.
I don't have another answer, unfortunately, for you guys. I wish I could come in here and give you some big, idea that could be a solution to everything. But I think it just comes with reps, like I said earlier,
Mhm.
not to repeat myself.
No, you're good, Jude. I mean, I have a broad answer for basically all the problems that we have been alluding to, and that's Pop continues to say there's pretty much no game plan. We're letting guys go out there and feel each other out. Wemby's just playing basketball. There's no set situation for him at this time. They're trying to get a feel for him. So long term, this will prove to be a good plan. In 3 years, we'll look back on these games and be like, ah, yes, Pop, thank you for doing that and not forcing him into an uncomfortable situation. Let's just continue to stay patient.
Yeah, and just being able to learn.
Mm-hmm.
I actually sent you that quote. I'm going to
Yep.
read that for us. So this was what Pop said before the game, I believe. We promised ourselves as a staff we were going to watch him for a while rather than, I mean, he's 19 years old. Instead of deciding we're going to work on this and that and this and this, and you're going to do this, we should probably watch him play for a while, see where he feels more comfortable, see where he's more successful, where on the court does he do this, that, and the other. So we start working on basics like balance and pivoting, that sort of thing. But as far as anything else, we just want to observe for a while and make sure we don't skip steps, and don't overcoach right off the
Mm,
bat. And this is a very unique situation because it's him.
mhm.
You haven't seen a player like him before. They're trying to get a sense of how he's going to play in the NBA, and he's talented enough to just play and do pretty well. I mean, as much as we've had some struggles this year, Wembanyama's leading rookies in scoring. He's leading them in blocks. I don't know if he is in rebounds, but he had another 11 rebound game tonight. He had 9 coming into the game. And that was another positive I saw tonight from Keldon and him. I know a lot of people
Mhm.
might criticize Zach, but if those guys are eating on the boards, it really doesn't matter because Zach gave us 18 tonight, and I saw him also get some stops at the rim again. He's not going to stop everything, but just like last year, Ethan, in my opinion at least, we're seeing Zach continually improve, on that interior defense.
For sure. And there's not much you can do about Bam Adebayo.
Right.
Like, even at
And
his best.
and he's been coming into this game for perspective, he was averaging 26 and 15 and they'd won 4 straight.
And he got 24 and 11. So basically, Zach shut him down.
There you go. We held him under the averages. We did what we needed to
Yes,
do.
sir.
I like our man Geo777 here with some positivity. Sohan looks better shooting threes.
Yes, he
Go
does.
Spurs. And his jumper overall looks a little bit better. You talked about where he can find his shots in this offense, and that's off of other guys. I've seen that a couple times in the past few games in the mid range for him.
Hmm.
And I know a lot of people are frustrated with his shooting right now, and I'm not saying he's going to just make a giant jump moving forward. He's going to have some bad shooting games this year, absolutely. But at the same time, we're going to continue to develop him, and ideally throughout this season, it'll still be better overall than it was last year, and that'll continue to improve. Which kind of goes back to something we talked about last year, Ethan, that we haven't really mentioned this year, with all of the Wembanyama talk and just focusing on wins and all that good stuff. We really alluded to it last season. He could potentially have that Kawhi trajectory. And when I say that, I'm not saying he's going to be a finals MVP. I just mean that he's someone that can, continue to develop different skills and get better, in lots of different areas.
Can you imagine how much better Jeremy Sohan would be, Jude, if he was playing next to 3 Hall of Famers and his only task was defend and get
Uh,
rebounds? Like, if that were the only 2 things he had to do, he would be worlds better in our eyes.
and that was what Kawhi kind of was asked to do in that
Exactly.
scenario.
Exactly. And Pat Bev has already co-signed on this take. So that's all it's all the what's the word? I don't even know. That's all I need to hear. It's
Yeah,
happening.
exactly. Well, Ethan, any final takeaways on this one? I hate to wrap this up so shortly, but it's just kind of the same story, guys. You're watching, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah, honestly, if we continue this kind of pace moving forward, even if we're not winning a bunch of games, but they're within 5 to 10 points, Jude, I'll be happy. Because that at least is much better basketball than the 40-point blowout losses. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And if we can continue this and then start to get some wins together, like
Mm.
we got to
We'll start pulling them out.
keep being consistent, like we have to where we're in games, and it's probably going to take time, just like
Mm.
Pop told Tom Thibodeau on the clip that went viral.
Yep.
Um, just moving forward, like I said, looking at this game, finishing those quarters, you had, almost double digit leads in the third and the fourth quarter, and you weren't able to finish those. Granted, the Heat's not the best matchup when you consider who you are, but at the same time, those are the steps and the humps that you need to get over to start winning games in the NBA.
Agreed.
Alrighty, Ethan. We appreciate all of you guys being in here, and we're not leaving just yet. The Austin Spurs played today.
Oh, yes, they did, Jude. What happened today in Austin?
Okay, and I'm not actually just going to talk about who everybody expects me to talk about because there are a couple guys that played good. First of all, they won by 20 points. Let's give you guys a little two-way update because we got 3 guys on the two-way at this point. Let me pull up the G League stats here. My boy Dom Barlow had 34 and 8.
Oh,
Serge Ibaka had 20.
dang.
CD
Goat.
had 10.
Oh,
And they won 136 to 116. And I'm still
Wow.
pulling up the box score here, and they're not giving it to me, which is making me angry. So we're going to continue to stall here and go to the G League website because I want to give you guys the full stats here. But still, second game for the Austin Spurs. First game, lost by 40. Dom Barlow comes down to Austin, and they win by 20. Coincidence, Ethan?
I think not, Jude.
I,
See, this
I
is what the fans show up for. They tolerate the Spurs talk, but they really want to hear Jude talk about Dominic Barlow.
Exactly. And I just went to the G League website and I'm like on the Austin Spurs Osala Magic page game. And okay, here's the box score. I couldn't find it at first. I thought I was about to tell you I was only getting the highlight video. But Mac McClung, he had 25 tonight. Brandon Williams had 38, but it wasn't enough because Serge Ibaka Rice, 7 assists for Serge Ibaka, 7 of 10 overall, 4 for 7 from 3, plus 21 and 20 points. And then Barlow, 11 for 24, had 8 boards, 3 steals, and then 34.
Wow. Kevin Garnett, light.
CD Sissoko, 10 points, 6 boards, 2 assists. I've been watching CD a little bit. I watched his numbers from the last game as well. And I think he's gonna be a long-term guy. But also, there's a reason why we gave him a full-on contract this season. Like the Spurs front office sees something in him long-term. We've joked about the Jack Boris comparisons, but I wouldn't overreact to those first 2 games because CD is kind of a. I made this comparison in the offseason. He's kind of similar to Jeremy in the sense that he does a lot of stuff that doesn't show up on the stat sheet. So yeah, I guess my message there is don't overreact too much to CD maybe not putting up the craziest box scores in Austin.
A definite project if I've ever seen one. I love Jacked Boris. That has to be his nickname moving forward.
Definitely. But yeah, my boy Dom Barlow, 34 and 8. I said the 30 and 15 games are coming. Unfortunately, we didn't get that tonight. But, if you take 4 off of the points and then you add it to the rebounds, that's 30 and 12, and that's closer.
Wow.
Hey, Dom Barlow for G League MVP.
I'm here for it.
Okay, Ethan, before we wrap up, though, back to some serious stuff. Both of our games this week are 1, on national TV, which is nice. 2, they're tournament games. And let's see I know one of them is against the Kings, and I think the other is against the Thunder. So it doesn't get any easier. We got to go play at the Thunder, and then I'm trying to see the second game as well. Okay, and then we'll be back in San Antonio for the Sacramento game. I think my biggest thing, this is another thing that we didn't talk about yet, Ethan. We've played much better at home than we have on the road as well.
Very true.
So I'll be very interested to see if we can kind of continue this in the way that we have in this Thunder game. To be honest, as I'm talking about it, I don't feel that great about it because the Thunder have a ton of talent and they're going to be playing with a lot of ante. But we still got to look for improvements in this season. And I think that's probably my biggest key going into the next game.
Yeah, I mean, they're a terrific team. They're young, but they're definitely way ahead of us developmentally wise. And Shai Gilgeous is back. We did not play him the first time we matched up against OKC in the preseason. So how will Jeremy or Devin fare guarding Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? That will be the test.
Yeah, maybe even Sohan.
That's just Jeremy or Devin.
Oh, yeah. My bad. I missed that. We do have the Wemby versus Chet rivalry, round 1 in the regular season. So that'll be fun as well. But I really hope that we can... If we can keep that within single digits, I think that would be a big step for us.
For sure.
Alrighty, y'all. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us tonight. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button below if you enjoyed the content. And if you want to stay updated with all the content, be sure to follow us on Twitter at SSPN We're doing quarter-by-quarter takeaways as well at Jude McLaren, at Ethan_Quintero to see when we post. We appreciate y'all. We'll catch y'all in the next one. Go Spurs, go.